I hear men say that women dress for other women. I have never put on anything and thought to myself, killing them. The girl's gonna be jealous. They is mad, as Nene Leak said. Baby, when I get dressed in the morning, I'm thinking about, does this look good for a man? Is he gonna like my makeup? I notice that most men, I get more attention when I'm not wearing the makeup, so I might not wear makeup to work. But when I'm feeling pretty, I'm gonna wear makeup. When I put on these wigs and I brush them out, it's not for women to compliment me. Why y'all competing with each other? It's so many men available. Okay, so I don't understand. I understand what men are saying when they say that women compete with each other. They get dressed for each other. Not me, baby. I'm getting dressed for you. Do you see me? Hello and welcome to another episode of the Woman of Worth podcast. I am your host, Tanisha Burks. Thank you so much for joining me again on today and being with me every week. I appreciate you. If you haven't already, please take time to like, subscribe, follow, share, and comment on the podcast. Please leave your reviews. Also, listen to the podcast on Spotify and Apple. And so we kind of been in this series the past couple of weeks. We've been taking some snippets from a book that I'm still in the process of writing that was supposed to be finished by now. Um, but it's not finished. But we're taking some snippets from the book and kind of discussing some women in the book, some women of worth in the Bible, rather, and learning about different women in the Bible that we normally don't talk about. Like when we go to conferences, you don't hear about Rachel and Leah. You probably will hear about the woman with the issue of blood. We're going to talk about her too because she's my favorite story, one of my favorite stories. And then you hear about the virtuous woman. You may hear about Ruth. You may hear about Esther. So I wanted to take a different approach and talk about different women. Like we don't ever talk about Eve. So Eve is the first woman. We have got to pay homage to the first woman. So last week we talked about Dinah. It was more of a serious episode. I am so glad that I made it through that episode without getting emotional. Um, because usually when I talk about, and it's probably because I didn't really talk about my story very much because I did that in a previous episode last season. So I think maybe it was easier for me to get through because I wasn't going back into my own vault of trauma that I've worked through and healed from. So this week is more of um, a positive woman. We're going to talk about the leading woman. And I've been to conferences where people talk about her, but I think one of the reasons why people don't talk about her much is because it's very little information about her. And her name is Deborah or Deborah. She was a prophetess. And her story can be found in Judges 4. And like I said, there's not really much information about her. Now, if you go back through the book of Genesis, after Leah, Rachel, Joseph, Jacob, all of them, we start getting into the crutch of the story, the Israelites, the people that descended from them, right? And we start talking about them. And these people were a stiff necked people. That's what the Bible calls them, meaning basically that they were disobedient. And, Moses was their leader. And poor Moses, just read Genesis, Exodus, and Leviticus, and Numbers, and Deuteronomy, and all the books leading up to Judges. Because you would have to understand that these people, even after Moses, even after the Ten Commandments, these people were still very hard headed. I am now in the book of Nehemiah. I'm doing the Bible, reading through the Bible in a year. It's July. No, it's August 8th here. You're hearing this in October. So I will probably be most likely done with reading through the Bible in a year because the way I'm reading it and taking it in is just so good. So I'm in the book of Nehemiah, and let me tell you, these people are still hard-headed. They have been in captivity by now. Okay. Anyways, so what happened? I'm getting ahead of myself. What happens is these Israelites, God's chosen people, They're wandering through the wilderness for 40 years because they're disobedient, right? They haven't made it to the promised land, the land of Canaan that God had promised them in Genesis, that he promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. These people are still wandering, trying to get to the promised land, but they're wandering because they're disobedient. They're not listening. So eventually what happens with these people is there comes periods of their times where they're disobedient. And then the Bible says that God will give them a period of rest. And what rest means in the Bible is peace. Beautiful. Who doesn't want rest? I want to rest, right? I want to be under a rest. Okay. And so God gives these people peace. And then because they have this peace, I don't know what happens in their mind that they think, okay, well, God is quiet, he's silent, he's blessing. Well, I wonder what would happen if I dip on over here. You know how we are. When we're at a rest and things are going good, we have got to find some way to put our hand in something to, I don't know, make something happen because we just like being in trouble. I don't know. If it's nothing going on, we can't rest. We're not at peace. We're just like the children of Israel, okay? And so there will come these moments where they will have their rest and then they will be disobedient, and then God will put them in captivity for a little while. And then they will cry out and repent. And God is so loving. He loves his people so much that in spite of what we do, he's gonna hear us, and he's going to pull us out of whatever it is that we're in whenever we cry out, right? And um, so these people, they cry out to God. God is saving from the oppressor. He'll raise up a judge that will help them pull them from the oppressor, and then there'll be a period of rest. There'll be a period of peace. And what do? They go right back into disobeying God. And it could be something as simple as worshiping other gods, uh, and sacrificing to other gods and different things like that. God don't play about that. He said he's a jealous God. Like, why are you gonna worship something that didn't create you? Why would you worship something or someone that did not deliver you from the hands of the enemy? Why would you worship someone that can't part the Red Sea? That you saw God part this Red Sea and let you walk on dry land. And if you weren't there during that time, your ancestors, the people that came before you, definitely told you about it because God said to do it, to pass it on down to the children so that they know who he is and that they know that he is God. So you've seen God do all these miracles, a cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night to lead you. He fed you manna. He does all these things. And then you have the nerve to go and worship this other God that can't do nothing for you, the gods of this land, when you need to be worshiping the God of the heaven. You got time to worship him, them other gods, but you don't have time to worship the God of heaven, the God that has done so much for you. So yes, I will be offended and I will definitely let you be oppressed. I will God 1000% on that. But because of his nature, because of who he is, because his character is love, because he is love, when we cry out to him, is something about our cry. Think about being a parent. Okay, you could be mad at your child. Your child could have just did, I mean, the most disobedient thing, right? And when you're chastising in the African American family, we know the chastising with the belt. We don't spare that rod, right? So when you are riding that child, you don't care about those cries because you're causing the pain. But it's something about when you see or hear your child screaming from pain that you're not inflicting on them. It's something about that just steers you up. You could have just chastised them with the rod, right? But when they go in that room and something happens and you hear that cry, you're going to check on that child and you're going to see what's wrong. That's basically how God is with his children of Israel. I know y'all get on my nerves. I'm sure they got on God's nerves. Okay? Think about, I get on my own nerves. So I know for sure that the disobedience gets on God's nerves. I know you get on my nerves, but I love you so much, I got to come and see about you. That's what God would do. So he would raise up these judges, right? So during this time in Judges, the children of Israel are in that same cycle. At this point, they're crying out to God for help. They're repenting unto God. God, save us, help us. We want to come out of this. And so God at this time raises up Deborah. Deborah is the judge that God chose to deliver the children of Israel. Deborah, however you pronounce her name. Yes, he raised up a woman. Whoa, man. He raised up a woman to deliver the children of Israel. Not only was she a judge, but she was also a prophetess. She was a prophetess that heard from God, and she was a prophetess that listened to God and spoke whatever it was that God said. She was an honorable woman. Okay. So he raises up Deborah. Deborah chooses someone named Barak to lead the army because I mean Deborah's a woman. She probably didn't want to crack her nails. I don't know. I'm just being funny. But she calls for Barak to be her general or her commander in chief. And she tells him that what God said to basically gather 10,000 men and take them to Mount Tabor to begin the battle. She prophesied that the Lord would deliver Jabin's army. I believe that's who the oppressor was at the time. But she prophesied that God would deliver that army into the hand of Barak. Basically, that Barak was going to slay them. And Barak is a wise man because if you're telling me to go to battle, I'm going to go, but you're a prophet. You hear from God. I also serve the same God that you hear from. So the smart thing for me to do would be to ask you to go with me. I don't mind being your commander in chief. I don't mind going, but I want you to go with me so that if you hear anything from God whilst we are there, I'm going to need you to send words, send it through a telegram because they didn't have phones then, send it through a bird or whatever. But I'm going to need you to tell me whatever it is that God is saying so that I can make sure that I'm doing what God wants me to do. And so she agrees to accompany him, but then she prophesies that through Caesarea, that Caesarea will be defeated. This is Jabin's army, and the victory would not belong to Barak. I'm seeing errors in my book. The victory belonged to a woman, but that woman was not her. So, Barak pursues after the chariots and after the host unto Harosheth. This is Judges 4:16. And the host of Assyria fell upon the edge of the sword, and there was not a man left. So, this is, I'm trying to think of how to say this. There is the woman that Deborah prophesied about. I feel like we don't talk about her at all because I had never heard about her until I was listening to shout out to Robert Madu of Social Dallas. Um, yeah, PR, Pastor Robert Madu. Yeah, Social Dallas in Dallas, Texas. I was listening to one of his sermons, and he talked about her. And I said, how come I never heard of Jael? I want to read her. Jael, Jael. I think it's Jael, right? And so I read about her, and actually, she was the woman that Deborah had prophesied about to Barak, that the victory would come through. So when the army of Syria or Jabin's army was fighting, um, Caesarea was one of the, I guess, the commanders in chief or whatever too, like Barak. All of his men died, and he got away. It's like he probably ran for his life. I don't think he was fighting because how you get away and everybody else just perished. So, the Bible says he fled to a tent of a woman by the name of Jael. Okay, now he's not knowing who Jael is. He don't know that she's part of the people. I don't think that Barak knew who she was. So she convinces him to spend the night in her tent for safety from those that pursued him. So he was running from Barak. But she I don't think Barak knew that she was working with him. I think she just was one of the people that happened to be there, and she probably knew and heard of God. and she probably honored God. There were times where people who weren't Israelites heard about God and things that he done, and then they started to worship him. Because who would have served a God like this? Who wouldn't? Who? When you find who, you let me know. I know it's some who's out there, but when you find somebody that's sane and they're not serving this God, you call me because we need to talk to them, right? So, this is the amazing part. So this man gets comfortable. Okay, this is probably some people probably look bad, but this was amazing for somebody that was an enemy of God's people. He gets so comfortable. He trusts this woman. He goes to sleep in her tent. And y'all, he woke up not in the tent. He woke up he woke up dead. Okay, that's not funny. But when he awakened, he probably was looking around like, I believe I was just sleeping that woman's tent. How did I end up here? Okay. What she did when he fell asleep, Jael took the nail of the tent and a hammer and hammered the nail through his temple. So when Barak came to her tent to look for Sisera, she showed him that she had fastened his head to the ground, and victory over Sisera was in the hands of a woman, just as Deborah had prophesied. Y'all, the reason why I think this is amazing is because the victory was through a woman. A woman that had enough sense because she worshiped God to say, I have this enemy in my hand. I have two choices. I can let him go, or I can defeat him and give the children of Israel a victory. And she chose the latter. Not only that, as a woman, honey, I can't stomach watching TV and watching a surgeon cutting something open. How was she able to just boop? Can you imagine seeing in a tent a man nailed to the ground? I just can't picture it. But I am honored that the fact that at this time God used two women. So for those that think that women should be silent in the church, and first of all, that wasn't God saying that women should be silent. That was Paul. That said, I believe it's Paul. I always get Paul and Peter mixed up. But it was Paul that said that. Those were his words. That's what he thought. That's not what God said. That's why it's important to read, because there was a lot of things that happened to women, or the silences of women that has happened, that's not scripturally or contextually supported. Okay? Not one time did God say that he was going to use a woman. Listen, when Jesus rose from the grave, who was at the tombs? It was Mary Magdalene. People love to call Mary Magdalene a prostitute. Mary was the first one that went and spread the good news that Jesus was alive and well, because he revealed himself to a woman. A woman saw him first. The men didn't even believe. One disciple plainly said, I don't believe you until I see him. He wanted to see the scars. And the only way he believed is when he saw the scars. And even when Jesus stood before him, he still didn't believe. But a woman believed right away, and she ran on to run and tell that good news. So I don't know where we got this idea that women can't be used in a I was going to say magical, not magical, in a wonderful way, in a mighty way. We feel like a woman is lesser than, even in ministries, and we don't realize how much power, how much grace a woman's hand can add to anything. A real virtuous woman, she could add so much grace, and she could add so much fragrance and beauty and splendor to something, to whatever you're doing. You need a woman's touch. You need it. Women are used in the Bible. So, what does she look like today? I'm going to read from the book because this is good here. We rarely hear stories about Deborah and Jael. I want to admit for a second that I did think about not adding her to the book because I felt her story was too short. I did. I'm like, this is just way too short. It's nothing about her. And honestly, there was not enough information about her. There just wasn't. We don't know if she was married. We don't know how old she was. We don't get the stuff that we get when it comes to the men, like the backstories. We don't get that from Deborah. We don't hear about that stuff, right? We don't know if she had children. Um, but when you read her story and study it, you realize that though it is short, her story is very pivotal and necessary for the children of Israel and their deliverance. Like if it had not been for Deborah, Sisera wouldn't have died. Barak wouldn't have um, gone and did, gone into battle. He wouldn't know what to do. There wouldn't she wouldn't have, it wouldn't have been the right man in place to even carry out the battle. You know what I'm saying? So, what would she look like today? She's the woman that leads with grace. And I'm going to say something. She's the woman that leads quietly. She doesn't need to be seen, she doesn't need to perform. She's the woman that when you see her, though she's silent, you can look at her and tell that there's power in her. She gracefully lets others get their recognition. Okay? She's the woman, she's not hung up on fame and victory or making a name for herself in the pulpit or trying to get people to say that, to get that pat on the back. She's not performing. She's just quiet. She's quietly waiting for God to give her the okay when it's time for her to do whatever it is that he wants her to do. She's the woman that doesn't need praise and accolades from the people because she really knows that the real glory, the real honor comes from God shining and smiling on her. Okay? She's the woman that's going to let somebody else take the credit. Point blank. And she'll sit there gracefully, knowing that she was the woman that did what's being praised, but she'll let that other woman take the glory because she knows that only God could pat her on the back. So she's not chasing the people. She's not a pick me because she's already been picked and chosen by God. So you don't need the people to pick you when God's already chosen you, handpicked you, called you out with favor, grace, honor. She's the woman that y'all see in church that's quiet. She's there, and then she may be gone. She's not in any mess. She is that woman that's just sitting there. She's a quiet storm. And when she opens up her mouth, you cannot deny that God has touched her mouth and that God's hand is on her life. And she's never going to take the glory for it because she knows that without him, she is absolutely nothing. She knows that if she doesn't hear from him, then she can't move. She knows that if he doesn't touch her with his finger of love and grace, then there is nothing that she can do. Even at your job, she's that woman that is going to sit in the background very quietly and she waits with precision before she speaks because she knows that she wants to speak the right thing and she doesn't want to speak anything that God did not ordain her to speak. She's the woman with wisdom that people will ignore She is most likely very overlooked and very undervalued, but she doesn't mind because her value don't come from the people. She knows that to him up there, she is the most valuable possession he has. Hmm? I think I basically summed up the story. Basically, this woman is every woman except she doesn't mind being seen. If more women could be as humble as Deborah and Jael, then all the competition among women would cease. I hear men say that women dress for other women. I have never put on anything and thought to myself, "Ooh, killing them. The girl's gonna be jealous. They is mad," as Nene Leak said. Baby, when I get dressed in the morning, I'm thinking about, does this look good for a man? Is he gonna like my makeup? I notice that most men, I get more attention when I'm not wearing the makeup, so I might not wear makeup to work. But when I'm feeling pretty, I'm gonna wear makeup. When I put on these wigs and I brush them out, it's not for women to compliment me. uh-uh. Why y'all competing with each other? It's so many men available. Okay, so I don't understand. I understand what men are saying when they say that women compete with each other. They get dressed for each other. Not me, baby. I'm getting dressed for you. Do you see me? So, um, we compete for temporary validation when true validation comes from God, and we don't have to compete for it. All we have to do is walk in purpose, and like magic will be validated and stamped in His kingdom. That's the only stamp we need in His kingdom. The story is short because there aren't many women who can accomplish something so powerful and great that doesn't mind a short mention in an announcement. We want all the recognition we can get for our accomplishments. Humble women are hard to find. We all strive to be the virtuous woman, but it is rare for us to strive to be the background woman. But remember, woman of worth. The background woman is the quiet storm that is never seen coming. Never underestimate Never underestimate not being out in the front. God is keeping you hidden for a reason. And when He's ready, woman of worth, He will reveal you to whoever He needs to reveal you to. So be like Deborah and Jael. Wait quietly in the balance. Be that attack that nobody sees coming. Okay? And when God is ready to release you, He gonna release you to whoop the devil. All right? Y'all be blessed and have a wonderful day.